As you know, there's lots of history that I thoroughly enjoy in London. And lots of you get in touch asking me about certain aspects of the certain places that we visit, including Kensington Palace, Buckingham Palace. And one of the questions you asked, I thought I would answer for you today, so at least it gives you some idea when you come over to London what you can expect. And more importantly, will you get the opportunity to actually meet Her Majesty the Queen? Now, Her Majesty the Queen moved into Buckingham Palace after, of course, the coronation in 1953, and her mother and her sister Princess Margaret had to move over to Clarence House. Now, I don't know if you know this, but the Queen Mother wasn't very keen on leaving Buckingham Palace. After all, this had been her home a long time. She'd lived there throughout the Second World War. There were lots of reasons why she wanted to stay. It was the very persuasive Prime Minister at the time, the Right Honourable Winston Churchill, who had to agree to fund a complete renovation of Clarence House, which then basically made the Queen Mother say, OK, I'll move. I don't know if you know this also, but Prince Philip was kind of glad that the Queen Mother moved away so that he finally, of course, could then really have what you call a normal married life. Well, living in a palace at least. But a lot of people ask me the sort of origins of Buckingham Palace, and more importantly, what does the flag mean outside, the Royal Standard? Now, when you go past Buckingham Palace, you will see the Royal Standard flying. And that normally used to indicate if Her Majesty the Queen was in residence or not. It's a bit like outside my flat, you know, you get the picture. But really, all of that changed way back in 1997, following the sad demise of Princess Diana. You will recall that the Queen had to come down from Balmoral after looking after the young princes at the time. And then basically she was told, well, look, you know, we now need to put the Royal Standard up. Now, this has changed, all thanks really to that particular incident, because now the Royal Standard remains whether the sovereign's in residence or not. So when you come to London and you drive past and you think, Her Majesty the Queen must be at home, think again, because that doesn't necessarily mean the case. What it does mean is that, of course, we have a reigning monarch. Most of the time now, particularly for the renovations of Buckingham Palace, which started a couple of years ago, Her Majesty the Queen divides the time between Windsor Castle and a few nights for business at Buckingham Palace. Right now, of course, she's up in Balmoral, which is her favourite holiday home in Scotland. And then she likes to spend the rest of the year out at Sandringham in Norfolk for Christmas. But as we saw, because of the pandemic, she actually spent Christmas in Windsor for the first time in many a year last year. So when you're next in London, hopefully you'll come and say hello to us as you see us filming in and around London. But when you do go past the historic Buckingham Palace and you see the flag flying, remember that doesn't necessarily mean our gracious Majesty the Queen is at home. But it does mean, of course, she is the reigning monarch. Neil Sean in the heart of London.